Welcome to our final lesson of week 4. We've built goals and objectives, articulated our theory of change, and constructed a complete logic model. Now comes the crucial test. Does it all hold together? Today we'll use if-then reasoning to stress test our logic model. We'll read through it, asking whether each step logically leads to the next. We'll identify gaps, weak links, and hidden assumptions. This is not about being negative, it's about being rigorous. A logic model that survives this scrutiny is more likely to succeed in the real world. By the end of this lesson, you'll accomplish 3 objectives. First, apply if-then reasoning to validate logic model coherence. This means reading your model as a series of conditional statements and checking whether each conditional is plausible. Second, identify logical gaps and missing assumptions. Where does the reasoning break down? What's assumed but not stated? And third, revise logic models based on critical analysis. Finding problems is only useful if you fix them. We'll talk about how to strengthen weak logic. The technique is simple but powerful. Read your logic model from left to right as a series of if-then statements. Start with inputs. If we have these resources, this funding, these staff, these materials, then we can conduct these activities. If we conduct these activities, these workshops, these outreach efforts, then we will produce these outputs, this many participants reached, this much material distributed. If we produce these outputs, then we will achieve these short-term outcomes. Knowledge gained, attitudes changed, continue through medium-term outcomes, behaviors changed, to long-term impacts, health improved. Each arrow in your logic model represents an if-then claim. Now test each claim. Start by testing input activity links. If we have these inputs, can we really conduct these activities? Check sufficiency. Is there enough money, enough staff time, enough materials? Check appropriateness. Are these the right resources? Do staff have the right skills? Are materials suitable for the audience? A common gap. Staff time is never as available as planned. People have other responsibilities. They get sick. They attend meetings. If your activities require 40 hours a week from someone who has other duties, the link doesn't hold. If you find problems, fix them. Adjust activities to match realistic resource availability or secure additional resources. Don't proceed with a plan that fails this first test. Next, test activity output links. If we conduct these activities, will we really produce these outputs? This seems obvious. If you hold a workshop, that's an output. But will participants show up? Conducting a workshop that no one attends doesn't produce the participant outputs you projected. Will you reach your distribution targets? Producing materials doesn't mean they reach anyone. A common gap is assuming participation without a recruitment strategy. If we build it, they will come is rarely true. People are busy. They have competing priorities. They may not know about your program. If you find this gap, fix it. Include recruitment and engagement as explicit activities in your model. They're not automatic. They require intentional effort. Now the critical test, output-outcome links. If we produce these outputs, will outcomes really follow? This is where many logic models fail. Reaching people with information doesn't mean they learned it. Attending a program doesn't mean attitudes changed. Receiving a service doesn't mean behavior is different. The question is whether your activities actually address the determinants of change. Remember your theory of change. If knowledge, skills, and motivation are the determinants, are your activities building all 3? If environmental factors are important, are you changing the environment? A workshop that provides information but doesn't build skills will produce knowledge outputs but may not produce behavior outcomes. The link breaks. Continue testing through the outcome chain. If short-term outcomes occur, will medium-term outcomes follow? If people gain knowledge, will they change behavior? Not automatically. The knowledge-behavior gap is well documented. What bridges that gap in your program? If medium-term outcomes occur, will long-term impacts follow? If people change behavior, will health improve? This link is often strong in science. We know diet and exercise affect diabetes risk, but other factors also influence long-term health. Notice that the further right you go in the model, the more factors beyond your program's control influence outcomes. This doesn't mean long-term outcomes are impossible. It means attribution becomes harder. Check whether your causal chain is plausible based on evidence, not just hopeful thinking. Let me highlight common logical gaps I see in program logic models, the magic leap. There's an activity and an outcome, but no clear mechanism connecting them. Will provide education and diabetes will decrease. What happens in between? The wishful thinking gap. Assuming that change happens automatically. If we tell people they'll change, that's wishful thinking, not a theory. The missing support gap. The program addresses individual factors but ignores environmental barriers. You can increase motivation all you want. If healthy food isn't available, diet won't change. The sustainability gap. The model shows changes during the program period, but no plan for what happens after. Will changes persist? Why? Each of these gaps represents a place where the logic model needs strengthening. When you find weak logic, strengthen it. Add missing activities to address gaps. If the knowledge behavior link is weak, what activities bridge that gap? Skills training, social support, environmental change, add them. Include intermediate steps that make leaps plausible. If the jump from activity to outcome seems too big, break it into smaller steps. What has to happen first? What has to happen next? Acknowledge limitations and external dependencies. Your program may not control all the factors needed for long-term outcomes. Say so. Identify what else needs to happen. And if necessary, revise outcomes to what you can reasonably achieve. It's better to promise realistic outcomes and deliver them than to promise unrealistic outcomes and fail. A valuable exercise is having others review your logic model. You've been staring at it, you've developed blind spots. Fresh eyes see things differently. Ask reviewers to identify where the logic breaks down. Where does a link seem weak? Where are they skeptical that one thing leads to another? Include people with different perspectives. Community members can assess whether activities will resonate with the target population. Funders can assess whether outcomes are meaningful and realistic. Evaluators can assess whether the model is measurable. Each perspective reveals different strengths and weaknesses. Take the feedback seriously. Resistance to critique is a warning sign. The goal is a robust model, not defending your original version. Let's summarize our key takeaways and wrap up week 4. If-then reasoning tests whether each link in your logic model is plausible. Read the model as a series of conditional statements and examine whether each conditional holds. Test the entire chain from inputs through activities, outputs, and all levels of outcomes. Gaps can occur anywhere. Common gaps include magic leaps with no mechanism, wishful thinking that change happens automatically, and missing support for environmental factors. Strengthen weak logic by adding activities, including intermediate steps, acknowledging limitations, or revising outcomes to be more realistic. And peer review catches blind spots. Fresh eyes see things you've missed. Congratulations on completing week 4. You now have a complete logic model grounded in theory of change. Next week, we'll move into intervention design and prototyping, turning your model into actionable program components. Thank you.